Hi, good evening. Uh, can you hear me?
Yes, Pastor.
Yes, sir. Good
All
evening.
right, good evening to all. Um, you also can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so great. We can now start our 14th session of um, the 15 invaluable laws of growth. Okay, so we are now in number 14, and we will be talking about the law of expansion. So this is one of the if there's one law that probably some or most people may find this as their favorite in the 15 laws. So this is it. Okay. So this is one of the laws that are um, fit, seem to be the favorite of a lot of learners of this 15 law. So I hope that we can also appreciate the law of expansion tonight because it speaks about growth always increases your capacity. Okay. So once you continue to grow, you will also increase your capacity and you will be able to expand. So it has been our goal, it has been our objective that we will grow this year. And can you imagine we started like January, mid-January this year, and now we are almost done with uh, the first half of the year. So we are going into the second half of the year. And before we know it, the year is going to end. And the question is, have we grown? Not just have we become a year older, but have we grown? Have we become better? Have we become wiser? So this is our goal, okay? So the law of expansion is very important because some experts say, if not most, okay, so many experts would say that we only use 10% of our potential. Now, I don't know if that's an accurate estimate, but can you imagine? Some experts would say that we only use 10% of our potential. So what does it mean? No, whether that is an accurate estimate or not, or shall we say, okay, let's increase it. So maybe we can say, if not 10%, then what? 20 or 30? Okay, 30. But the point is, even if it's 30%, that 70% or that 90% is what we call our potential. Okay? So that's the room for growth that we have. That means if we only don't stop growing, if we only don't stop in the 10% or the 20% or the 30%, we can reach our full potential. But what makes this special or what makes this different is that we don't just do this for ourselves. We know that the definition of a leader in this study of John Maxwell is a leader is a person of value that values or who values others and who adds value to others. The reason why we want to grow, the reason why we want to expand, the reason why we want to increase our capacity is so that we can add value to others. We can help others. We can also lead others to greater heights and also to reach their full potential for the glory of God. So, this is not just about me being great, being good, being better than others. It is about me reaching my potential so that I can help others reach their potential as well for the glory of God. And if we apply this in the ministry that we have received from God, then that this means also that the the growth that we will experience personally will be able to will be translated to how we lead, how we support, how we train or teach others, and that will also redound to the benefit of the ministry. So this is what makes this study exciting. If some people would do this so that they will become great individually, or some would use this for business, or some would use this for other purposes. We who are in this course, I think we have one goal, and that is to capacitate ourselves to grow so that God can use us more effectively in the ministry. So the potential that exists within us is limitless and largely untapped. It's like what I said a while ago. Um, Many experts would say that we only use 10% of our potential. So we have 90% left. We have okay, if you think you have reached 30%, you have 70% left, room or potential that you can still grow in. So when you think of limits, it's just we that create the limits. Okay. So we have a lot of room for improvement, a lot of potential, but it is only our belief that is limited. So that is where we want to grow. Now, when we talk about growth, we have to um, realize two things. Okay, so I'm gonna um, take you to these two questions. Now, many of us have this attitude about how long will it take? Okay, how long will it take for me to graduate? How long will it take for me to finish school? How long will it take for me to become an expert in this field? How long will it take for me to finish this course? So that's our mindset. I think when you have young kids, that's normally the question. Are we there yet? How long will it take, Dad, to reach our destination? And somehow we brought that kind of mindset as we um, grew up. Okay, so we are always looking for the finish line. How long will it take for me to get there? And we fail to shift to this question: how far can I go? Okay, so it's all about finishing. It's all about, okay, I'm done with this. It's all about how long will it take for me to be an expert or to be a master or to be well versed in on this subject. But when we realize that it's not about how long will it take, but it's how far can we go, then that's what we call expansion. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, so for a lot of people, they're just waiting for the time until they retire. They're just waiting for the time until they will be done with or whatever task they have. But if we shift to the second question, how far can I go? Okay, not just waiting for the end, but what else can I do? We push things forward so that we can reach our full potential. So please take note of these two questions. Many of us may be in the first question, how long will it take? We're just waiting. I remember someone said that if you focus on a particular subject for 5 years, that means you invest 1 hour a day on a particular subject. In 5 years' time, you will be an expert. But as you continue to invest your time, you realize that no, it's not the 5 years that matters. It's not the 10 years that matters. It's how far can I go in this particular subject. So let's shift from how long will it take, but how far can I go? Another thing is to grow to our full potential, we have to change how we think and we have to change what we do. So there are two things that we are going to discuss tonight. It's how we think and what we do. So to grow to our full potential, first we are going to discuss to change or how we can change how we think, and then change what we do so that we can reach or grow to our full potential. All right. So we now go to change how you think, how to increase your thinking capacity. Okay. The first thing is, now let me mention this. I have highlighted phrases or words on these slides, not because they're more important than the other statement or other words, but because I'm just showing you that these are the answers to your workbook. Okay, so the highlighted and the underlined words are supposed to be the answers to the blanks that you have in your workbook. So it doesn't mean that they are more important than the other words, but it just guides you so that you have you know the answer. So first, stop thinking more work and start thinking what works. You know, many people would always say, "Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy." Thinking that if you're busy, if you have more work, if you are so preoccupied or overwhelmed with work, that means accomplishment. But hey, it doesn't work that way. Okay? More work doesn't mean more accomplishment. Much work doesn't necessarily mean much success because um, you can see this around us. Okay? Here in the Philippines, we see people doing a lot of work. It's because that they're doing labor, hard labor, doing a lot, but it doesn't mean that they're successful. So again, we have to realize that more work or much work is not the measure of success. It doesn't mean that you are so tired, you are so overwhelmed that you're doing the right thing. Okay? So it's not about being too busy. It's not about having more work. It's starting to think what works. Okay? And many people would call it not work harder, but work wiser. Okay, so there are these are two different things. So we should stop thinking more work and start thinking what works. So let's remember that effort is not necessarily equal to effectiveness. Okay, having a lot of effort doesn't always mean more effective. Okay, it doesn't work that way. You can tire yourself to death. You can, you can ignore yourself because you're too busy, but it doesn't always mean that you're effective. So let's stop thinking that effort is associated with effectiveness. Now, another thing is many things versus right things. Okay? So it's better to do the right things than to do many things. That's what we mean when we say stop thinking more work and start thinking what works. So it's all about it's all about prioritization. Okay. When you start to prioritize, when you go up um, the ladder of leadership, for example, I can say this for government executives because I have gone through a lot of trainings for government executives, and there is always that competency, okay, that competency that are required of leaders, and that is time management. You know how to manage your time. You only have what, 8 hours in a day for work, but you have tons of work to do. So how do you manage it? Okay. So you really have to prioritize. Otherwise, you will be focusing on the non-important things, okay, which you can delegate, which you can set aside. to a latter time, and you will ignore and you will not focus on the priorities, okay, the things that you should really focus on. So many things versus right things. I hope we will realize tonight that it's not about the amount of things that we do. It's about whether we are doing the right things. Okay. In fact, I've shared this probably a couple of times already, that there are a lot of tools about time management, about, categorizing your tasks, things that are not important. You can put that off to a later time, or things that are important so that you have to prioritize, or things that you can delegate to other people, or things that, all of those things you can sort your tasks so that you can focus on the right things. Another thing is, more busy doesn't mean more impact. All right. So it doesn't mean that you're so busy, you're so tired at the end of the day that you have more impact. So again, it's not about the business. It's not about the many things that we do. It's about effectiveness. It's about doing the right things. It's about doing the right things that have more impact rather than just being busy. Another thing is, of course, this is what we um, have: more work versus what works. Okay. So we have to change how we think. A lot of people would just spread themselves too thin. Okay, just be on everything, and then they lost their effectiveness. There's a phrase that I have seen in a kitchen, um, um, in a picture, that says, if you chase two rabbits at the same time, you will lose both. Okay. If you chase two rabbits at the same time, you will lose both. Sometimes you just have to focus on one so that you can accomplish something, rather than, chasing everything and not being able to accomplish something. All right. Now, there's a very important principle. Some of you may have learned this in college or in high school or wherever. It's about the Pareto principle, okay, the 80-20 rule. So, we're not going to discuss the Pareto principle in detail, but you may want to study about this. But this is a very important principle, okay? In fact, when I was still working with a bank, I realized that this is how they strategize their customers, their customer, um, how they manage their customers. So the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, says 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. That means 20% of your efforts, okay, result to 80%. Okay. Or in short, a small portion of your work makes the biggest impact. So that means what I do, only 20% of that will have 80% of the result. Okay. The 80% that I do will only contribute 20% in the result. So that you can focus. What is that 20% that you do that will have that will give you 80% of the result, so that you can focus on the 20%. Now, let me give you how the bank that I used to work with use this Pareto principle to identify and to manage their clients. So, um, that bank realized that this principle may be true, because we were told that 20%, only 20% of the client of that bank holds 80% or provides 80% of the profit. Okay. So 80% are just transactors, they're just there to deposit and then withdraw, but only 20% of the the clientele contribute to 80% of the result. So what that bank did was to brand or to categorize that 20% as their preferred clients. So you have a special lane, you have dedicated relationship managers because they want to take care of that 20% that contribute 80% of the business. Okay, so that's the Pareto principle. That means we can be too busy for a particular day, but that this principle tells us that only 20% of our effort actually contributes 80%, okay, of the result. So we have to focus on the 20%. So that means we need to prioritize. We need to know what is the 20%, what is that thing that works rather than doing more work and focus on that. Now, it is very important in our um, work in the ministry, okay, in our churches or in our organizations, because we can be too busy doing so many things, but what really matters is when we develop, train, and equip our people. Okay, I think this is where we should focus on because we may be focusing on a lot of things, a lot of activities, a lot of programs, a lot of events, but bottom line, many of them are just forgotten. Many of them are just, it doesn't contribute. They don't contribute much. But when we devote our time to developing people, training people, and equipping people, that's what really matters. Okay. I think in the ministry, this is what we should focus on. So another thing is when we stop thinking more work and start thinking what works, we ask ourselves these questions about what works. Okay. A, what am I required to do? You have to ask yourself, what are those things that only you can do? For example, okay, I'm talking to pastors here or to Bible women or to church workers. What are those things in the ministry that only you can do? Of course, you have to work on that, but the rest, you can train people to do it. So we said that it's not just about working for them, but what matters is we work with them. We equip them, we develop them, we train them. It's not right just to do everything when those things can be done by people. You focus on the things that only you can do. Next, what gives me my greatest return? So that means what's more important, okay? And then what gives me the greatest reward? So it forces us to think, to prioritize, to what really matters. I only have limited time. I only have 8 hours a day. What would be the greatest use of my time? Okay, so that's it. So these questions will help us to focus our attention on what we must do, what we ought to do, and what we really want to do, because that gives us the greatest reward and the greatest return. So rather than having no plan, doing you know a lot of things, we just focus on what really what really matters most. All right. So don't think less. We're not saying okay, do less, but we should think strategic. Okay, what would give us the greatest return? What would give us the greatest reward? So it's not just about doing much, doing more, but it's about doing what's important and what really matters most. All right. So, secondly, stop thinking, can I? Can I? And start thinking, how can I? Okay, so you have two questions here. The first one is, can I? And the second one is, how can I? So, what's the difference between the two questions? So, first, for the can I, it's more like, hesitation and doubt. Can I? So, you already impose limitations just by asking this question in a doubtful way, or in a way that, can I really do it? So you have already highlighted your limitations, and it undermines your effort. It's like, can I really do it? But l- focus on the next question. How can I? So instead of can I, but use how can I? That means this gives us the fighting chance to achieve. So we want to do it. How can I do it? It's not just can I do it, but how can I do it? Okay? How can I do it? It assumes that there is a way, and you just have to find it. So it doesn't highlight your limitations, your doubts, your your weaknesses, but it focuses on your strengths, on the way. There is a way. You just have to find it. And then it challenges your capacity. How can I do this? And then it tests your limits. So we need to shift from can I to how can I? Okay. How can I do this? How can I be a better pastor? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better leader? Okay. Rather than, can I be a better leader? Can I be a good father? Can I be? So it's like questioning yourself. But the second question is, how can I? Okay. I'll find a way and I'll do it because I want to do it. So most of our limitations are based not on lack of ability, but lack of belief. So many of us are still in this first question, can I? Instead of how can I? How can I do this? Okay. So that's how we increase our thinking capacity. Change the way you think. Okay. Change the way you look at things. Instead of can I, you ask, how can I? All right. So the next thing is stop thinking one door and start thinking many doors. You know what happens when we only think of one door? Now we're not talking about salvation here. Okay. We know that salvation, there's only one way, one door, one name, and that is the name of Jesus Christ. But when we talk about strategies, um, possibilities, many people would think, oh, there's only one way, there's only one door. And if that door is shut, that means there's no more chance. If that door is closed, that's it. I'm not gonna try to look for other open doors. So they're limited to that one door, they're limited to that one way. Okay. So no, we stop thinking one door and start thinking many doors. Okay, there are other ways, there are other opportunities, there are other means that we can do this. When um because of the traffic, okay, here in Metro Manila, you will be forced to look for alternate routes, alternate ways. Okay, so if you're just stuck with only one way, so if that way is traffic most of the time, so you won't be able to save a lot of time if you don't know several ways. Okay, so it forces you to look for many other ways to reach your destination. And that's the same thing with our life. Not because one door is closed doesn't mean that everything is closed. There must be other doors. Not because there's not there's I mean there's it's wrong to say that there is only one way to do something successfully. If it doesn't work, then look for another way, look for a better way. Okay, so Stop thinking one door and start thinking many doors. Do not limit yourself just to a specific route or a specific way. There are several ways to get there. Okay. Now, of course, you have here some statements. Okay, that may encourage us. Movement with intentionality creates possibilities. Failures and setbacks can be great tools for learning. Okay. Remember that phrase, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Because we learn a lot when we lose. It's hard to learn when you're celebrating, but when it's during the time when when we lose, that's when we learn a lot. So do not waste our loss. Okay, we can learn a lot. Success is a result of continued action filled with continual adjustments. That means you persevere, you adapt, okay, you learn. If this way doesn't work, then there must be another way. There must be a better way. So that's what we're saying. Stop thinking one door and start thinking many doors. Now, the second thing is how to increase your capacity to action. So we just discussed how to change the way we think. Now, how to change what we do, our capacity to action. So first is stop doing only those things you could have done and start doing those things you could and should do. Okay. So that means we have to assess, not because I've been doing this thing that I should continue doing this thing, but asking ourselves, what are those things that I could and should do instead of those things that I have already been doing? Because not everything that we have already been doing are the things that we could and should do. So what are those things that we should and could do? That's what we should start doing, not just the things that we have been doing. Okay? Not because, again, I'd like to emphasize that, not because you've been doing it, that it means you just have to keep on doing it. But you have to assess what are the things that you should do and you could do. Then those are the things that you should do. So the more that you do what you know, the more you discover additional worthy things you could do. When this occurs, you have a decision to make. Will you continue doing what you have always done, or will you make the leap and try new things? Okay, there's always that, when you are growing, your capacity continues to grow as well. And then you began to expand. Now, let me share this with you. When I started out in government, I think 13 years ago, I I have experience in the private sector, but I have little experience in government work. But the more you grow, the more you push yourself to learn, the more you challenge yourself to get trained, the more you accept difficult tasks and assignment, the more you realize that, hey, I can do more things. Now, should I stay in this position now, or should I pursue higher positions that I could have more impact and more influence and I could grow more? Okay, so it's a continuous growth. Now, when you continue to grow, you continue to expand, you continue also to have bigger or greater impact. So sometimes you will have to decide, should I stay or should I move up? Okay, of course, that's something that you would need God's wisdom in order for you to make the right decision. But when you grow, when you continue to grow, when you continue to capacitate yourselves, then you will also expand, and your capacity will expand, and your impact will also expand. All right? So stop doing the things that you have been doing and start thinking, hey, what should I be doing? Okay. And that's what I should be doing. All right. So that's letter A. The next one is stop doing what is expected of you and start doing more than is expected. Exceed expectation. Okay, that's what this point talks about. That means if you want to grow, for example, in an organization, you want to get noticed, you want to advance your career, you need to do and be more. You have to rise above average. You can do this by asking more of yourself than others ask, expecting more from yourself than others expect, believing more in yourself than others believe, doing more than others think you should have to do, giving more than others think you should give, and helping more than others think you should help. That means do more in business. Okay, I have been with private firms before, and it's not about just meeting expectations, but it is exceeding expectations. It's no longer just satisfying the needs of your customer because everybody, okay, all other businesses have the same objective, but it's about delighting your customers. That means they will say, wow, what a service. Okay. This is where I want to dine most of the time. This is where I want to go because I am delighted. Okay. So that's how businesses do it now. Do you know that there's a study that says 85% of the people don't actually meet expectations? So they fall below what is expected of them. 10% meet expectations, while only 5% exceed expectations. And these 5% normally are the ones who rise up, are the ones who get promoted, are the ones who make their way to the top because they exceed expectations. So it's not just about more work or much work. It's about what works, but it's also about exceeding expectations. It's not, a lot of people would just do the bare minimum of what is expected of them. Bare minimum. And if you do that, okay, we belong to the 85%. But if we meet expectations, we belong to the 10%. But when we are so motivated, okay, self-motivated, we do this for God's glory. We want to be our best. We want to do our best. That's exceeding expectations, and we belong to the 5%. Okay? So this is what we want to happen. Okay? That Christians, pastors, workers are known for being not only persevering, but they are known for their they excel, excellence. Okay. Now, a lot of companies now focus on that excellence. Now, how about the ministry? Many of us just stay average in the ministry. Many of us, mediocre, moderate, so-so, or some people would call it, okay, just uh, trying to float around. Okay, so I think that is unfair. Okay, when it comes to the work of the Lord, when it comes to what we could become for Him, I think we deserve, or God deserves, our best. Okay, He deserves our best, and that's when we exceed expectations. So, going far beyond that call of duty, doing more than others expect, that is what excellence is all about. And it comes from striving, maintaining the highest standards, looking after the smallest detail, and going the extra mile. Excellence means doing your very best in everything, in every way. Okay? So exceed expectations for the glory of God. Be the best employee that you can be. Be the best pastor that we can be. Be the best husband that you can be. Be the best wife that you can be. So it's being more than what is expected of us. The third thing is stop doing important things occasionally and start doing the important things daily. Okay. Now, this one I think is also very important because there are things that we do daily that are not very important, but there are very important things that we only do occasionally. Okay. So, what a misplaced priority. We do things daily, the things that are not important, but the things that are important are the things that we do not do daily, and we do them occasionally. Now, it says here to advance confidently in the direction of one's dreams means doing what is important every day. Okay. So that means if you're doing something and you're doing something important, you must be doing it every day or consistently. Okay. Because to do what's not important every day does nothing for you. It merely uses up your time. To do the right thing only occasionally does not lead to consistent growth and the expansion of your life. Both components are necessary. Daily growth leads to personal expansion. So, if you look at your calendar, if you look at your schedule every day, it will reveal the kind of priorities that we have. Are we doing important things daily, or are we doing the non-important or the less important things daily and do the important ones occasionally? Okay. So that is a misplaced priority. So actually, what we need is we get our priorities right. And once we get our priorities right, we should be consistent doing that every day. Say, for example, do you think exercise is important? Physical exercise, especially for those who are already um, in a more advanced age. Okay. So, is it important? If it is, then it should be a priority. Then we should be doing that daily. Now, what are those things that you are doing daily that are not important? Maybe those are the things that we should already do away or start doing occasionally. Okay. So, again, the important thing here is that we give priority to our priorities. Do the more or the most important things. First things first. Okay. And we do it with consistency. All right. Now, finally, when you expand your capacity, when you grow, you also expand your impact. And this is what we want to happen to each one of us. Okay. We want to expand. We want to expand our capacity because we want to expand our reach. We want to expand our um, um, impact, okay, our influence. Okay, so when we grow, we can also influence more. Again, this is not just about me, this is not just about you, this is about how God will use us in ways that we would never have imagined. Okay, expanding our impact. So, your impact is a direct function of your capacity. So when you are growing, you are expanding, then your capacity also expands. Then the impact that you will have on others, or the more people you will reach, the more people you will influence, the more you can do for God. So, again, this is our motivation. We want to grow. We want we don't want to stay where we are, not growing. Okay. Um, have you experienced that? For some of you who may have missed a friend or someone that you haven't seen for years, and when you have seen each other, nothing has changed, right? As in, nothing has changed. But another experience would be meeting someone that you haven't met for say 5 years, but look at how that person has grown, not just physically, but has grown in capacity, in impact. Okay, and that he's able to expand and influence more, especially if this is for the glory of God. And then there is nothing in your past that determines your future. Your capacity must grow. Again, you may not be able to go back in the past, okay, to make a brand new start, but you can always start to make a brand new end. So that means whatever past we have, we could start anew, okay? Tomorrow is the first day of the rest of our lives. We can always start anew. We can change the way we think, and we can change the way we do things with what we have learned tonight in the law of expansion. Because the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, if ever we will grow and expand, depends on how we apply the principles that we have learned tonight and in the past sessions of our uh, lesson. All right. And finally, ask yourself, where is your impact right now? And then ask yourself where you would like your impact to be. So, where you are now, what kind of impact you have for others, for the ministry, for yourself, or for your family, and ask yourself 5 years from now, what kind of impact do I want to have in the life of others? What kind of influence, what kind of growth in the ministry? What kind of leader would I want to be that can lead more people and challenge more people? And that difference is the limits of your capacity. So that means we can grow more and be more for God. Now, that is the law of expansion. And I'm excited for all of us who would apply this law in our lives. Okay? Because that means when we apply these laws, the future looks better. Okay. In fact, it's only when we grow that we are assured of a better tomorrow. Okay. Because we are looking forward to more positive impact, more influence, more expansion for the glory of God. All right. So for tonight, these are our discussion questions before we go to our respective groups. So first, I'll discuss the questions first. If you conduct an effectiveness audit for yourself as you look back on your schedule for the past few months, would you be more on the more work or the what works category? Okay. So, can you make an honest effectiveness audit of yourself? Is it really about, you know, trying to do more or trying to figure out what works? The second one is, have you already transitioned from a can I to a how can I person. I think we've discussed this um, early in the lecture. Okay, can I, doubts, hesitation, focuses on the weakness, focuses on, whether I can do this, doubt. But how can I, focuses on the way. There's a way. I just have to find it. I can do this. How can I? Okay, so, and how do you plan to start or continue to be a how can I individual? And third, can you share with the group what are the important things that you need to do daily? Okay, again, priorities with consistency. Okay, that's the secret. Know what your priorities, know what are the important things, and do it daily rather than doing the less important things daily and doing the important things occasionally. Okay, misplaced priorities. All right. I hope I have clarified the three discussion questions that we can share with our group. And let's now circling back to Mamaril for our group discussion.